So a few things before we continue. I think this message is really important. This is something that Mary Myatt bangs on about, and I think we bang on about to each other in SLT, is that at the moment it is really so important, without being cheesy, that we are looking after ourselves, because each of us has got a responsibility. We've got a responsibility if we're leading a team, if we're a member of a team, if we're teaching a class, if we're doing stuff remotely, if we're preparing stuff, and we need to really be looking after each other. And the reason I say this is because I know that I'm not that good at it at times, and I need to remind myself. You know, Greg McCowan says sleep is a responsibility, but I don't always follow that through. And I need you all to be looking after yourself, because, you know, if you're not doing that, you're not as effective. And the result of not doing that is a difference in your perception of things, a tiredness, your teams get ineffective, and things don't work as well. And for me, I think there are a number of things there. It's about sleep. It's about diet. I joked in my last email about, you know, eat junk. Well, that's not wise. But also, I think it's your social media diet as well. I wasted about 2 hours last night when I probably could have been relaxing and switching off, but instead you jump on Facebook and Twitter and actually don't do yourself any favors. So I think it's so key at the minute, and I know many of you are doing these things. Right, keep that in mind. Now, why did I just show you a picture of me driving through the country lanes? Because basically I think there are two things going on at the minute, and I just want to acknowledge them really. There is just this utter hideousness of being in the midst of this thing. And it feels for me like back in the day, about 4 years ago, when I worked in London but lived in Swanage, and I have to leave the house on Monday at 4 and drive all the way from Swanage to London in what felt like an absolutely endless, hideous black journey with lorries on the road and ice and rain. And I haven't felt those feelings until now. They've really resurfaced, really. I just feel like we're in the midst of something that is just ongoing, and you can't see the light ahead. And part of our well-being, as lovely as it is to have sausage sandwiches and everything else, is just to acknowledge that it is just pretty hideous at the minute, and we're all feeling it, and to validate that for all of you, because not only, I know some of you have got not only the hideousness of being in this pandemic, there's other stuff going on as well. And it is okay to feel like that, but it's equally so important that in your teams you are talking to each other and you're supporting each other. And I love this from Matt Haig this week. You know, people say to me things like, well, you know, Anthony, there's other people who are worse off. Yes, there are, but your sadness and your hideous pain is just as valid. Matt Haig says it's okay to be sad about something, even if there are even sadder things happening elsewhere. There is no misery Olympics. Put away your scorecards for despair. Okay, it's all right. Equally,
doors closing.
There are moments of joy. My autistic son would love that video going up and down the lift. There are things that happen day after day that just fill you with joy. I love going out and delivering laptops and seeing the children's faces. I love walking around school. And that's the great thing about being here. And that's why I feel for people who are working at home at the moment. There's something just so uplifting and normalizing about seeing colleagues. And within your teams, really try to make sure that there is a mix of people who are coming in and having time to see each other, because I think it really does help. Sometimes there are moments of joy that just come out of nowhere, like the parent today that emailed in and said how much they enjoyed Miles's yoga videos. Going home yesterday and my wife telling me, who's that young man? Who's that young man that seems to know a lot about music? Well, he did a really good lesson today for Felix on music, and that was Adrian. But if you try, you will find lots of moments of joy throughout the day. And I'm glad that they are there, because, as I said earlier, it's quite black otherwise. Okay. And that's the thing. The other Matt Haig quote is, you may walk in the rain, but you are not the rain. And you know what? Being in not the rain, but the hell of this pandemic, it doesn't have to define us. You know, it's equally okay to feel happy and to find joy and enjoy spending 20 minutes in the office with Rich bantering about stuff. You shouldn't have any survivor guilt about that. It's okay to be happy in the midst of this. Just going on to school, really, our display is really taking wonderful shape. This is the foyer that Amy's building, this wonderful display to display our values and be our new picture that encompasses everything about our values and vision. This is just going to look wonderful. In school at the minute, there's 133 pupils on site. A large proportion of those are critical workers, and we're still not happy about that definition. And we do need to be mindful that the vulnerable children that we talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago with Nick, that list may grow. And Nick will say a little bit about that in a moment. We can't just assume that, you know, the vulnerables were from some time ago. As we live through the difficulties of this pandemic, things will happen in families that mean people become vulnerable. For those of you who've not managed to get in for whatever reason this term, just to say to you that the bubbles are tighter. Yeah, it really is no mixing. Each little year group is an island, and only some of us breach those islands, and we do that rarely. The office is closed. Not even I can go in the office. I have to stand at the glass panel, like a benefits office, basically. The staff room is closed. People do go in there to make drinks, but very rarely do people hang around. And all of our TAs are in. They're busy doing Zooms and other things, okay? At home, though, so there is, in each year group, 1 to 2 teachers working on online learning provision. You are the people that I really feel for. On Sunday, when I had to do some work around contact tracing, it's a hard place to be, being at home, because I know for many of you, and I know for me when I did that on Sunday, last Friday, you're balancing your family and the work that you have to do. So it's great being on the phone to Public Health Dorset until Leo comes in and shouts, "Dad, they're flooding the bathroom." You know, these real things still go on. Reception are currently isolating because of their bubble going down, and there are 2 members of staff who currently have COVID. And when I say not serious, it's not pleasant, but they're out of hospital. Okay, now only teachers who are working at home, because the teacher's job does allow them to work at home because they can, you know, remote in, etc. And as I said, there's a balance and a stress of family. And I really do feel for people who are working at home. I think it is wonderful for us to be able to come in because you don't have that isolation of being away at your desk at home. Okay, right. Just to flag this up, this is, I think, a standard desk is just about, give or take 20 centimeters, a meter. And, you know, what we keep learning is the importance of social distancing. Really cannot stress this enough, that when we talk about contacts, you need to be able to tell me whether you've been in breach of a meter or in breach of 2 meters even, and we're getting better and better at that. And with each of the 2 cases that I've had to deal with recently, the doctors have said to me, just impress upon your staff the importance of social distancing. And you know, when we talk about testing in a moment, social distancing is not taken away, is not cancelled out by testing. It is still just as important. Okay. Now, one thing, Rich is going to send out a form by the bulletin shortly. If you need to ring me out of school hours because you have tested positive, I need you to have the information to hand to say who you have been in contact with. That is anybody, basically, for me, for argument's sake, that you've breached 2 meters with. There's no shame, there's no embarrassment, I just need to know the names. And anybody, for argument's sake, for simplicity's sake, who's been in the same room as you, okay? So before you pick up the phone to me, please do fill out that form. That will make, people often say to me, "Oh, Anthony, you know, it must be taking up your Sunday dealing with this." Well, it's a lot quicker if I have that information to hand. And I think for all of us in SLT, we've got that process of bubble closing down to a fine art now. We know what to do, but it's far faster if you've done your bit. Okay. I want to just sort of think about those people who are not in the meeting tonight, and, you know, there's tricky things going on for them, really. And I'm just going to say their names, and we're going to just have a moment of reflection, and I'll say this prayer, and if you want to just listen, that's fine. If you want to say amen at the end, that's fine too. And I just want us to think particularly at the moment for Fran, whose funeral for her partner's coming up this week. We think of her, and we also want to think as well of Emma Dawson, who's now at hospital. That's brilliant news. And also as well, we need to think of Mandy, who's tragically lost her dad as well some time ago. So just with thinking of those, let's think of, let's just listen to this and say amen at the end if you want. God, grant me the serenity to live fully and generously through circumstances I cannot control, hope to keep on imagining better times for myself and the world, and courage to change what I can instead of simply leaving it to others. Amen. Okay, 9 minutes. Nicholas, over to you, lovely.